Guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I really appreciate all of your support of my channel. Today is day 65 in the search for Nancy Guthrie, and there is some new news that just came down a little while ago. TMZ is now reporting that they have received yet another ransom note, and they're giving some very specific details of what that note said. I'm going to get to that in just a second. Also, Savannah Guthrie was back on the Today Show for the first time since her mother, Nancy Guthrie, disappeared. And one thing that I'm wondering is it just a coincidence that TMZ has received this new alleged ransom note on the same day that Savannah Guthrie went back to work? Look, I don't know if this ransom note is real. I think most of the ransom notes have been fake. I think that TMZ has overblown a lot of these notes. And I'm going to get to exactly what it says in a second. But I have wondered if when Savannah Guthrie went back to work, would that spark new interest in the case? Would that spark whoever did this to somehow do something differently or react differently? So it's something that's kind of been in the back of my mind. I was wondering if there was going to be some kind of development today. So anyway, I'll get to the TMZ note in a minute. First, I do want to reference, though, Savannah going back to the Today Show this morning. She said that she had received many letters, that she had received so much kindness. She said, "Good morning. Welcome to Today on this Monday morning. We are so glad you started your week with us, and it is good to be home." She wore yellow. And she later went outside, you know how the Today Show anchors do, and was taking pictures with fans outside. And there were all these people who had signs saying, "Welcome back, Savannah." And there was no real, on this Monday morning, we are so glad you started your week with us, and it is good to be home. She wore yellow, and she later went outside, you know how the Today Show anchors do, and was taking pictures with fans outside. And there were all these people who had signs saying, "Welcome back, Savannah." And there was no real direct mention of Nancy Guthrie or of the investigation or anything, but it seemed emotional, obviously, with her first day back after everything that she has been through, and was obviously took an enormous amount of strength, and she has just been really incredible through this entire thing, in my opinion. Okay, back to this TMZ note. So I'm going to read, I took notes of what TMZ is saying happened here with this latest ransom note. They are saying that a person has been incessantly contacting us. They use that word, incessantly. That they received another letter saying, "I know where her body is and where the kidnapper is. Give us half a Bitcoin and I will tell you." And again, they were saying this person has been very persistent. This is someone who has contacted them in the past, wanted to make clear they have nothing to do with it, meaning Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, that they've been out of the country, but that they know who the kidnapper is and where the body is. And Harvey Levin at TMZ says that they've forwarded the letter to the FBI. He said, "My spidey senses say there is something about this guy." So it doesn't seem like he's totally discounting the letter. At one point, said time, Harvey Levin said at one point the same person who emailed before said time was of the essence, then later said time was no longer of the essence, which it seems like is making Harvey Levin think that this is legit, because the person may have sent the first note when they knew that Nancy Guthrie was alive, and then perhaps sent the second note when they knew that Nancy Guthrie was no longer alive. Now, I don't know what to make of these TMZ notes. I've been skeptical. I mean, are they just looking for attention? They make a good headline for TMZ every time they report on one of these. But again, I think the timing is interesting, that this is coming on the same day that Savannah Guthrie is back at the Today Show. And I think it's interesting that Harvey Levin is saying that his spidey senses say there is something about this guy. I also think you have to remember that Savannah Guthrie said when she did her Today Show interview that she believed that 2 of the ransom notes were perhaps legit, which actually surprised me. That was probably the most surprising part of the interview for me, because I did not think that she was going to say that. I just assumed that they realized that none of them were legit, but she said she believes the 2 are legit. And now we have this new note reportedly coming from TMZ on the same day that Savannah Guthrie is back to work. I am joined now by Joe Giacalone, a retired NYPD sergeant. He's been involved in a ton of criminal investigations and cold cases over the years. Joe, thank you so much for joining me. Really, really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Brian.
I first want to ask you about this new development within the last couple of hours. TMZ reports that they've received another ransom note. I've always been a little skeptical of the ransom notes, especially from TMZ. Like, are they just trying to get headlines? But I was just reading through what they said. Harvey Levin said, "My spidey senses say there is something about this guy. He's written them before. He's been very persistent. He doesn't claim to be the kidnapper, but says he knows who that person is and where the body is." I mean, what do you make of it?
Well, listen, law enforcement's going to have to try to track down anything they can on this. Like you said, I've took the ransom stuff with a grain of salt from the very beginning because it was unlike anything we've ever seen before in history and textbooks or what have you. So, listen, they have to do this as part of their investigation, but there's always been a couple of investigations, tracks going on here. Your ransom, stranger kidnapping, family members. I mean, all of these things happen just about in every investigation. So it's just another thing that they'd have to concentrate on and quite frankly, probably waste a lot of time trying to figure out what exactly is happening on that end.
With Savannah Guthrie going back on the Today Show this morning, though, I had always kind of wondered in the back of my mind when she decided to do that, would that have an impact in the investigation? Like would that spark someone new to come forward? Or if it was like a obsessed Savannah person who did this, would they be sparked to send a new note or something? So the timing is kind of interesting that the same morning she goes back to work after more than 2 months, TMZ suddenly gets a note. I mean, what do you think of that?
Eventually, I mean, she had to go back to work. All right. I mean, I remember standing at a homicide a long time ago at a scene, and I remember the detective next to me saying, "Hey, Sarge, you know what? Life goes on, right? And things just happen like this." But yes, I think the best thing for her in her own, for her own mental health and overall health is to try to get back to some sort of routine where she goes back to work and does something that she loves to try to keep her mind off of this because I'm sure she's basically losing her mind in so many aspects about what's going on with the investigation, worried about her mom and her health and everything else that goes along with it. We can only imagine what somebody would go through that kind of trauma.
What do you think about the timing, though, of this note to TMZ on the day that she went back? Do you think that there could be a link there?
I don't think so, but like everything else, if this is somebody who's just been trying to make trouble, so to speak, then yeah, sure, they would do this, take this opportunity because she's back on the news and everything else that goes along with it. But I don't know. I just hope that they figure out who this person is and if they have real information. I mean, there's over $1 million in reward for this. So, I mean, come on.
You don't seem that, just as the tone of your voice, you don't seem that convinced with these notes.
No, I didn't. Like I said, I wasn't really a big fan of this ransom stuff from the beginning. And one person they did catch, right, that was trying to scam the people out of this. It would have rewritten textbooks, Brian, on how law enforcement handles ransom notes. I mean, they didn't go directly to the family; they go through the media, which is something we've never seen before. There's just some other things I just don't like about this. Right, the idea is to get the money and be able to give the person back, but that doesn't seem to be part of the equation when this thing first happened.
And there was no proof of life ever, from what we know.
Right. And you're not going to send any money over the internet for this. I mean, it's not that it's gone forever. I know a lot of people don't think that the Bitcoin can't be, traced, but listen, there are a lot of people out there that have the skills to be able to do this. And you know what? The FBI, I'm sure, is working on that as we speak.
Yeah, I sort of thought all the ransom notes were just made up. But then when Savannah did that interview with Hoda, she said that she believes that two of them two of the ones that they received could be legit. So then I started to think to myself, well, wait a minute, if she's saying that, that's probably the FBI telling her that. So maybe some of them have been, real.
Well, I mean, listen, they don't tell the FBI is not going to tell the victim's family exactly everything that's going on. They might just say like, "This is what we got. We think it's credible." But law enforcement's job is to make sure they vet out all that information anyway. They're not going to come out and say this is nonsense and we're not going to even be bothered with it. So, you don't want to give people hope, but you also want to say, "Listen, we're taking this seriously. We don't know if it's real or not, and we're going to try to track it down and see if we can get you an answer." I mean, I'm sure that was kind of like the conversation that was going on.
Yeah. And so we'll see where these notes go. I mean, again, I just wonder if TMZ thinks it's a good headline every time they get a note. But obviously, they're saying that they're forwarding it to the FBI, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. I'm curious, Joe. It's now been more than 2 months. you did so much cold case work, and I don't want to call this a cold case yet, but if you were to receive, if you were working this case, you received the file now, like where do you begin?
It's easy for me, Brian. I would just say I would be creating an international cold case task force, and we would be bringing in every agency that's in within 100 miles of where this crime happened. And I'm talking about at least one representative, and of course, we would include the federal partners, including the DEA. Now, people say, "Well, how do you know? Why would the DEA?" Because Mexico is not that far away, and I'm sure the DEA has assets and confidential informants in Mexico that they can help out with this investigation. And one of the things that I would be pushing for is to be debriefing every prisoner that gets arrested within that 100-mile radius, asking them if they know anything about the case, asking recently convicted prisoners as they're sitting in the cell for the first time in the first week, you know what, maybe they do know something. Listen, you have to go to the sources where these guys hang out and these guys know one another, so to speak, and try to get information out of somebody. This is a get out of jail free card. And like I said before, over $1 million and you haven't had a real tip that led you anywhere is really concerning, which means it could be a big part of the dark underworld that we don't know about just yet, and people have been keeping it quiet. But you know what? One thing I found in my career is that somebody who's been sitting in a cell says, "You know what? I know something. I got to get out of here," and they can try to make a deal.
It's interesting you say that. One of my cop friends, and he's not even a detective, he's a street cop and he's a younger guy. He was asked, we were chatting about the Nancy Guthrie case, and that's what he said. He said, I bet at some point someone in prison is going to have the tip. And I was like, why do you think that? And he said, I don't know. I just have a hunch. Like at some point it's going to be someone behind bars who gives up some info.
Well, I mean, it's a tactic that we use quite often when we're trying to investigate cold cases, when you're dealing with things with 20, 30 years old. Who else would know about things such as this? And listen, debriefing of prisoners, even at intake, and I don't care if it's for something minor, you never know exactly how many times people have been arrested, and they might be looking at some serious time and they've heard something. I'll take a rumor, I'll take anything. Of course, the police have to go and vet that information, but it's a lead, right? There comes a point you have to go and shake the trees and create your own leads. I don't want to see police departments sit back and say, well, we have DNA possibly, right? Well, no, you have nothing until you get it back. That's the first thing. And even if you get it back, you don't know if it's going to be usable, if they were able to extract the mixtures, all those things that go, right? Get off your butts, go out there and start shaking your own trees. Make something happen. And listen, law enforcement has the capability of doing this, but having all of those other departments doing the same thing you're doing, you shake enough trees, it could be something falling out of it.
You mentioned Mexico. I've always wondered why it seems like they've downplayed Mexico. Like in the beginning, they made a point to say, well, we have no evidence to believe this has anything to do with Mexico. The Mexican government said the same thing. But it's so close. I mean, I drove there from Nancy's house. It takes like an hour and a half, maybe even less time if there's no traffic. Like, I just have a hard time just saying it has nothing to do with Mexico. I don't know. It seems like we should keep that possibility open.
You always keep it open. But I also remember, whatever the law enforcement agencies say too, you never take them for full value. They say everything and nothing all in the same sentence, right? Oh, everybody's cleared. Nobody's cleared until the case is over. I mean, it's as simple as that. First of all, you don't want to keep people. You want to keep people calm. You want to keep people, in a situation where they might make a mistake.
Guy,
So
he was asked, we were chatting about the Nancy Guthrie case, and that's what he said. He said, I bet at some point someone in prison is going to have the tip. And I was like, why do you think that? And he said, I don't know. I just have a hunch. Like at some point it's going to be someone behind bars who gives up some
yeah,
info.
and even if you don't have access to it, right? You happens to you go somewhere and it says, hey, there's a Wi-Fi here. It connects onto your MAC address or whatever it is on your phone or your watch. And people are going to turn around and say, well, he made her take off the wristwatch, the Apple Watch and the phone. Yes, because the word is out there that these things can be easily traced and trackable. So the bad guys know to get rid of these things now. It's unfortunate, but it's just a sign of the times.
You think we'll get a resolution soon?
Uh, no. If you would ask me this question in the first week or two, I would say yes, because I was really uh, hopeful when I saw the FBI coming in here and doing this, because it is it's not a mini department. People think like this is like some mom and pop sheriff's department. They have like 500 deputies in this department, and as far as the 18,000 agencies goes, it's huge because most departments have fewer than 20 sworn cops. So this is a big department, but the FBI brings so many assets to bear. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have mind seeing even the Secret Service coming in because of their cell phone data and technology and all the other things. Like I said, the DEA because of the drug connections that they have in Mexico. So I would, look to further my federal partners in this thing and just throw it out there and say maybe somebody didn't think of it. I don't know. I mean, and I'm not saying I had the answers to everything and I'm the greatest and all that other stuff. I'm just saying this is what I would be. This is how my brain thinks. Even 14 years into retirement, when I first started this, is that I'd be doing this, this, and this as of right this second.
Yeah, and you make a good point. People do think it's like some small little country department. There's 400 deputies
Yeah,
sworn and a
yeah, a
ton of
couple of hundred.
civilians.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a small department. Tucson isn't like some small place, it's a city. With the ransom notes, what are you looking for, as an investigator to see if they're legit?
Well, it would be that direct connection to the family. They want the money. They don't usually, I don't think they've ever wanted a big production out of this. It's usually very quiet, one-on-one kind of conversation between them, the law enforcement agency, and or the family members to get the money, to come up with a scenario where they're going to drop off the victim and get and be gone with it. So to bring in all of the national media and all the other stuff is just way too much for me as far as I'm concerned. Because if you're trying to keep something like this, you want to keep it on the down low. You don't want to have the FBI getting involved in this thing off the bat. You don't want that if you're a bad guy. No way, no how.
All right, I appreciate Joe for taking the time to talk with me, help me go over all these new developments. There's a couple of other things I wanted to tell you about that's developed over the last couple of days, specifically when it comes to Sheriff Nanos. You guys remember the last couple of days, specifically when it comes to Sheriff Nanos. You guys remember the Board of Supervisors in Pima County has been investigating the sheriff. There was this whole controversy with him allegedly lying under oath and saying that he had never been suspended before, when actually at his last job decades ago in El Paso, he had been suspended a number of times. So the Board of Supervisors hired this legal team to look into the sheriff. There's also been allegations of ethical violations involving his opponent when he was running for sheriff, a woman named Heather Lappin, who also worked at the sheriff's office. And these allegations are that he was purposely punishing her ahead of the election and that there was election interference. So there's this new document that's come out where there are three different things that he was being investigated for. For bullying, it said that they don't have the evidence to support a finding. But then these two, they backed up. Ethics, the preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that Sheriff Nanos used his authority and department resources for political gain. The evidence includes considering Lieutenant Lappin's political campaign in investigation and disciplinary decision-making, culminating in issuing a press release that included information obtained in his capacity of sheriff. So they backed up an ethical violation, basically saying that he put out this press release before the election against a woman who he was running against, who was also under him at the sheriff's office. And then also code of conduct, the preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that Sheriff Nanos violated applicable code of conduct rules by including confidential information in a press release about the reasons he placed Lieutenant Lappin on paid administrative leave for political gain. He did not maintain rules about courtesy and civility. So they upheld that one, and it says the sheriff's actions were found to be inconsistent with the listed policies. However, the sheriff is not subject to these policies as an elected official. So again, it just goes back to the fact that because he is an elected sheriff, they can issue these rulings, but there's really not much they can do in terms of getting him out of office because he is elected by the people. There, of course, is the recall going on behind the scenes, which I've told you guys about, where they're trying to collect enough signatures to try to have another election to get him out. So he's obviously been under fire from all different sides. There's also this new report that came out from Fox Digital over the weekend that he tried to bring a loaded gun on a plane and was going through TSA. I had that here. Accused of bringing a loaded gun to an airport security checkpoint. It was apparently in his carry-on bag. The sheriff wasn't charged, but he was required to secure the gun before continuing his travel. Just makes you wonder if it had been anybody else, would they have been charged or fined or something like that? But because he was the sheriff, maybe they just sort of let him go. But again, a loaded gun trying to get on a plane, that was kind of a shocking report. So those are the latest headlines from today. Got a couple of other things I'm working on this week that I'll keep you guys posted on. Again, I really appreciate everybody for all your support, for checking out the channel. Again, day 65 since Nancy Guthrie just vanished out of her home in Tucson, Arizona. So I hope that, I hope and I still believe that answers will come. I just hope it's sooner than later. And my heart again goes out to the Guthrie family. And I just think of how difficult it must have been for Savannah Guthrie to go back to work with everything going on. So I'll keep you guys posted if there are any developments, and I'll talk to you guys later.